Um, shall we begin?
Sure.
Hey, and we have been actually recording for a little while. I'm not exactly sure on the settings on that. I thought I told it not to, but that's okay. In the event, just to warn you all, in the event that I upgraded this platform today, so we should be able to go as long as we want. But if it hasn't been fully registered yet, it might shut us off at 40 minutes. If it does shut us off automatically, I'll just open it up again. And it's all the same link and the same login, everything. This is my login from now on, apparently. Okay, so want to welcome Deborah Grow. I've seen her online, and I noticed we had 66 friends in common, but we actually just met last night, and we had technical difficulties, and it was very nice to get to know each other just a little bit. So welcome to the teacher's room at iTDi, Deborah. How are you feeling?
Good, and I was surprised, and we just chatted about 5 minutes, that we have quite a bit in common, I think. So
yeah, that's always fun. Yeah. So why don't you start off with the easy stuff and just tell us a little bit about your journey from little girl to big girl and getting to your school in Tsukuba now. What's the journey been as a teacher?
The lyrics that came to my mind were a long and winding road.
Yes.
So
take your time. Tell us.
So yeah, I think fate had a big part in my being a teacher, my being in Japan, and just my journey so far. When I grew up in Virginia, in America, and my family had friends, very close family friends, who were Japanese missionaries, and they lived in Japan for over 30 years. And they had been here a while, but when I was born, they were still very close friends with my family, and they would come back every few years, and they would tell me stories about Japan and life in Japan, and they gave me books, and I started getting really interested in Japan. I went to the library, and I got my own books about Japan, and I think the first words that I learned were Ohio Sensei. So maybe that was some fate for the future, I'm not sure. So I did have interest in Japan, I think my whole life. And I've still kept in touch with this minister, and he's very kind. He's 90 now, I think. And
wow.
And we share pictures about Japan, and I keep in touch with him. So that's really nice. So that's been a long time connection in my life to Japan. And in school, actually, I was thinking about today in the car what I wanted to talk about, and I thought about how I hated school. I really hated school.
Me too.
And you did, yeah. And I just couldn't get into it. My sister loved school. She couldn't wait to go to school. I hated school. And my mother would literally push me out the door and lock the door because I wouldn't go. And she said, oh, you could never miss a day or you wouldn't go back again. So, and it was like that until high school for me. And I joined a performance group, a singing group. And then I suddenly loved it. So I think there's a connection there that once kids find something that they can grasp and that they love and that they enjoy, then learning becomes an adventure, it becomes fun. But until then, sometimes it's agony for people. And there's a different key for everybody. There's not one key. And that's what I want to get into later, that there isn't a cookie cutter mold for education and how to reach children. So once I started loving, I always grew up singing. I sang in church from the time I was like 7 or something. With my sister, we would sing. And so I was always singing, and I took piano lessons, and I really enjoyed music. So that was a big part of my life always. And then in undergraduate school, I studied, I started as a voice major only. And then I was in musicals, and I said, oh no, I've got to do this too. So I double majored, and at the time there wasn't a double major at my university. So I had to do 2 completely different majors, and they both took the most hours on campus, as you know.
Yeah.
So my life was just crazy. And
Tell us a
But
few of the musicals that you did.
oh, I did a lot of different musicals. I did in Chicago and in New York, and also in regional theater, summer stock. I did the Fantastics and Fiona and Brigadoon and Rosabella and the Most Happy Fella. It's the singers, kind of old time singers musicals that I just love. I still love.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
So they were really fun. And then I did some opera and different things. So, my first love was music and theater. And I started doing that after undergraduate. I moved to Chicago. I did summer stock, and then I went to Chicago, and I started doing plays and musicals and a lot of TV commercials. So my students now are like really, they're so impressed when I say I was a big McDonald's girl. You know, Chicago is the home of McDonald's. So I did national commercials. And then I moved to New York. I was doing well. I moved to New York, had a good agent. And I continued to do plays and musicals, and I did opera and different things in New York, and a lot of commercials and industrial films for big companies. So all of that was really great experience. So that was the beginning of the journey. And from that, I think I learned a lot of things that transfer into teaching.
Yeah.
After I was in New York for a while, I decided I wanted to go back to school. And I was listening to Ruthie's interview about going back to school. So I was in New York for about 3 years, and I decided that I wanted to go back and work on my singing some more. So I went to graduate school, and I got a graduate degree in vocal performance. And while I was there, I also did theater in their theater department too. So that was a really good experience. And I did teaching there. I was a teaching assistant while I was in graduate school. So I started, I guess that was the first real teaching that I had done. Although in undergraduate, I had voice students that I taught. So that was fun. I had an actual classroom that I had to manage, and I taught music appreciation and singing technique and that kind of thing. So that was good. And then I went back to New York and continued my professional career. And then after a few years, I met a Japanese man, and then things changed again. And we lived in New York for several years after we got married and had 3 children. Then things really shifted for me. My focus shifted, and I wanted to spend time with the children. So I had all this creative energy that I needed to use, and I started to write. And there was a book actually that was very influential for me, and I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called The Artist's Way.
No.
Have you heard of this?
No.
I recommend it, actually. It's really good. It talks about that each person is an artist in their own right, no matter what you do, that you're an artist. And it's really your responsibility to develop that and to take the time and the energy to develop that. So I started writing every morning, and occasionally my oldest son, who was then maybe 2 or so, would have a tantrum and lay on the floor and cry, and I would just get down with him and do the same thing. And I said, no, I'm going to write. Even if you cry, I'm going to write. So I started writing, and that's how I started publishing, actually. I started writing books and songs and ideas for children. So
Wow.
I started writing, and it took me a long time to publish them, but I had lots of material because I wrote every morning. I got up and I wrote every morning. And that really helped me make a transition, I think, into teaching. And when he was 3, he went to preschool in New York City, and I started teaching a class once a week at the local preschool in rhythmics. And if you're familiar with rhythmics, using instruments and rhythm and songs and movement and all kinds of manipulatives, and we did creative dramatics, and I did that with the 3-year-old class. And that, I really loved working with young children, and that was really fun. And it gave me energy, and I looked forward to it every week. And then he went to Japanese kindergarten in New York. And of course, all of his classmates were Japanese from Japan. And I started teaching rhythmics and English to the kindergarten children. So that was my beginning of ESL teaching.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was in New York, actually, that I was teaching ESL in New York. And I was doing it through music and rhythm, which is what I think really, really works with young children.
Now, was Carolyn Graham around at this point, or published, or?
Yeah, I'm sure she was published. I didn't know of her at that point.
Right.
yeah, I didn't know about her at all. I later met her and went to one of her workshops, and I showed her what I was doing, and she was very, very kind and complimentary, and it was great
Is
to
it,
meet.
I mean, I've used a lot of her stuff, and I've heard and read the background of the theory of what she believes in. Are you guys very similar in your beliefs?
Actually, very similar in our
Yeah,
beliefs that that English is a very musical language,
yeah,
and each language has its own rhythm. And once you catch that rhythm, it becomes much easier. And I think this is the big gap with university students in listening, that they don't know how to listen to English. They don't know how to pick up the key words because we speak in groups. We speak in word groups, these chunks of words with a
yep.
keyword in there that's emphasized. And they don't listen that way because Japanese rhythm is very straight and they're listening for every syllable. So little kids can pick it up. And when they pick it up when they're little, it helps them completely in their listening. I teach in my school. My youngest one right now is 1 year and 3 months. She started 2 months ago, but I've had them as young as 8 months come to my school. And some people say, oh, what can you teach them at that? They're learning everything. They're learning everything. And there's a great study that I really like, and it talks about how babies learn a language. And there are, of course, a lot of studies this way, but this one in particular talks about the prosody of language, and that what babies are listening for are the pauses, the word groups. And then I later studied an article out of Stanford about how music lights up the brain. And then it was showing people listening to a symphony, and they monitored the brain and how it lit up in different places. And you would think when all the instruments are playing, when the music's loud, that it would be the most interesting to your brain. But the most interesting, when every lobe lit up, was in the pauses. And I think that the pauses are very important, and music gives you that. Like you have so much given to you in music. You've got, if it's written correctly, if a song is written correctly, it gives you the right keyword on the right beat, and then it gives you time to process. And what this study said was, in the pauses, then your brain assimilates what it's heard and anticipates what's coming next, which is very similar to how babies are learning, because they can pick up different languages based on when the pauses are and what the word groups are. So of course they're watching and they're looking and they're so attentive, but they're listening for word chunks and when the breaks are in the language. And those breaks are very different in Japanese and English, as you know. So I think all of that's very interesting.
Oh, it's fascinating. It's totally fascinating, isn't it? Yeah, I've got a question at the end. Let me ask the question, and you fit it in wherever you would like later on. But whenever I get into conversations about the power of music, I'm always excited and sold by it, and I have many occasions of using music in the classroom. But why don't I do it more? And why don't teachers build it into their curriculums a lot more? Because there's almost nothing as powerful. I mean, certainly drama is very powerful, and it suffers the same problem, that it's not exploited as often as it could be. Whether this is the time to answer or later on, I don't know.
Well, I think one problem is that people think music or drama is a sponge. It's not the meat of a lesson. But it can be. And I went to a very nice workshop from a teacher who's now passed away. I don't know. Did you ever meet Bob Betts?
No.
He taught at for many years, and I think other places too. And he used music quite a bit in his classroom, and he used it in a variety of ways. And I used some of his lessons even now in my classes. And he used it for listening. He used it for learning verbs. He used it in many ways. So I think one of the gaps is that teachers don't have enough resources to know how to use music if they're not musical already.
Yeah.
So they feel a little nervous to say, oh, that's not my area. I'm good at teaching grammar, or I'm good at teaching this. And so I think there's a hesitation, which is now a huge hesitation of Japanese teachers, that now they have to teach speaking and listening. Oh, it's not my expertise. But somehow we have to help each other because we have different strengths. So if we can, and that's part of your network, which I really like, if we can help each other with our strengths, then we'll all be better teachers and we'll all have more tools in the toolbox.
So do you actually, do you or have you trained native and or Japanese teachers using music and theater and drama in the classroom?
I have actually. I do workshops around Japan, and I went to Hiroshima, the YMCA there, and
Yeah.
the whole Western
Caroline,
Japan.
yeah.
So Carolyn,
Yeah.
and they all use my books and songs. So I went to train them on how to do it and how to use instruments in the classroom. And I also represent Kimbo Educational CDs. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they were a dance company out of New Jersey, and for many years they sold dance music, but then they expanded into educational music for young children, and they have just a wealth of CDs and materials. So I was showing them how to use those, and how to use instruments, we dance with ribbons, we do many things for creativity, and so there's a lot that can be done with younger students especially. But I think a lot can be done with older students too. I always incorporate musicals into my classes. Even the TOEFL classes, we were doing Beauty and the Beast. So we were studying it and doing it, acting it out. And they love it and they're interested.
Yeah, totally. Students always love it.
Yeah, and it's something that they like, that they know, and then they're incorporating their emotion into what they're saying. And then I suddenly find them memorizing whole chunks of text that if it was from a book, it would never happen.
Yeah.
So.
I was trying to get to the question of, when I was asking you about training teachers, I wonder if you train 10 teachers or 100 teachers, what percentage of them can do it? And I wonder what percentage of them buy into it. Or do you have to be really, like, because you and I are both coming from theater and music backgrounds, so it was the most obvious thing in the world to me the first time we did a Beatles song in English, how I had almost 100% of the students, engaged. Whether they were in tune or not didn't really matter, but they were all into it.
Right.
So my question was, what percent can or will do it, do you think?
It might depend on the group. I've done a lot of trainings with the Filipino teachers in Japan,
Yep.
and they love music, they love
Yeah.
to dance, they love rhythm, and they're like 100%. I don't think I've ever had one that
Yep.
wasn't on board and just couldn't do it, didn't like it. They were just
Agreed.
sad.
Yeah.
So they're my favorite audience. They're just great. I wrote a curriculum for a big company in Vietnam, and I went over and did teacher training there. And the teachers that liked to teach the young children were really on board.
Yeah.
The teachers who said, I prefer like a quiet lesson, and they were much harder to sell on it.
Yeah.
So I respected that, and I said, I'll give you some ideas, for your classroom that work with older students if you want to try them. And I have some rhythmic activities that work with all ages, and the university students, they're like laughing, they're having a great time with it, they find it difficult. And even some things that I do with the Nenchol kids with rhythm sticks, the university students are going, oh my God, because you don't have time to translate, you have to do it. So it's very fun. It's just very fun. And I did it at a teacher training recently in Totori, and some of them teach university. They said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. So
cool.
I think it takes open mind to try new things, and courage, just like everything, everything. Courage to try something new that you might not feel an expert at in the classroom. And I've had to do that this year because for the first time I'm teaching, as I told you, the IBT. I'm teaching for the TOEFL at I teach at Juntendo University, and I was asked to teach the IBT TOEFL test preparation it's their top level students, the medical students, and they're pretty much native level. So I was thinking, what am I going to do to really help them? And so I've had to come up with new things and a little bit out of my comfort zone, but that's where you want to be, and that's the only place that you grow.
Yeah.
So it's really easy if you teach the same thing over and over many years to get complacent or just not try something new. I know this works, this is safe, and this is easy in a way.
So how did you get from when we last left off, you were in New York City. How did you get to Japan?
So when my oldest son, well, my story is kind of tied to my children. When my oldest son was 6, we decided to make the move to Japan. And my husband had been transferred to Japan from his company. So he was working in the New York office. And right before we were going to go back, he decided to go to London and get a master's. So I was with the kids by myself in America for a year. And then he took a job in Yokohama and we moved. And I thought, am I going to leave? Because this was like a complete twist of fate for me because I never planned to leave New York. I loved New York. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to leave New York. But it was another big life decision. But I thought, I talked to my midwife. I was really, she was such a kind woman, and she kind of became my friend. And when we moved, my youngest was just 1. And I said, I don't know, do I want to go to Japan? I'm like, my career is here and my friends are here. And she said, well, it's an opportunity. And then I thought, yeah, it is an opportunity. And it may be an opportunity that if we turn it down, might not come again.
Yeah.
And most decisions, you can go back and change things. I mean, you can always pack your bag and go home if you don't like it. But I thought I should try it. And I, as I said, I always in the back of my mind liked Japan and was very interested in Japan. So I said, let's go for it. Let's try it. And so in Yokohama then, I had 3 young children, 6 and 3 and 1. And then I started teaching out of my house. So that was really the beginning of my school. I taught rhythmics to very little children. And then I taught elementary school kids in the afternoon. And in between that time, I was teaching adults. I had a lot of adult students in Yokohama.
Yeah.
So we were there
around what year did you come to Japan?
I came actually, it was right after the terrorist attack. My husband was supposed to fly out on the day after the attack, out of Washington Dulles. Of course, all flights were canceled. He was one of the first days they flew out again. I came 2 weeks later at the end of September. So I've got an anniversary coming up. At the end of September 2001, I came with 3 children on an empty flight and with lots of help from the stewardesses, and nobody was flying. It was like, oh my gosh, and out of Dulles. We flew out of Dulles.
Yeah.
Where the attacks. So it was pretty amazing. And so I've been here 17 years.
And so you started teaching from your house and then eventually became your school. Yeah. No.
So we lived there for 3 years, and then we moved to Tsukuba, where I live now. And I took a job as a full-time immersion kindergarten teacher. So I did that, and I was the Tannin sensei for the Nenchu. So I was in charge of this immersion class of mostly Japanese kids, although I had 1 Korean child in my first year.
Did you speak Japanese at that point?
I had been studying some Japanese, and I learned kindergarten Japanese very well.
Good.
Keita, kanda, funda.
Yeah.
I knew all of those verbs. But I was listening to Ruthie's talk. We were also under strict instructions never to talk Japanese to them. But I I knew that they weren't comfortable. So I would sometimes speak Japanese to them. And we had a Japanese teacher in the classroom if they were really confused or didn't understand. But that was like boot camp for me, teaching young children. That was boot camp. And I had wonderful teachers that I worked with. I worked there 3 years. And I had really veteran, great Japanese teachers and they are amazing. And the reason I ended up in kindergarten teaching was that my daughter went to this amazing kindergarten in Yokohama, and people would stand in line for 3 days to get into it. And somehow we had a connection and she got in. And they were just, I couldn't believe what they were doing. They were reading kanji books. She would read kanji like, denji ga kimasu. I'm like, at the train station, she was 4. I was like, well, how do you know that? She said, we learned it at school. And she didn't speak Japanese when she went in. After 1 month, she was completely fluent, although she had heard Japanese and would watch videos and things like that. But
Yeah.
and I said, oh, I want to go to kindergarten. It looks so fun. And then I got into kindergarten. Oh my gosh, it's so much work.
Yeah.
And had to do everything. We had to pull weeds. We had to clean the toilet. There was an English school in the afternoon. I ran from my classroom over. We had to take them swimming. There was one day that there was this kid in my class, and I had another teacher, actually from Canada, who was working with me. We had a big class, so we had 2 teachers in it. And this kid wouldn't put on his swimsuit, and we had like 5 minutes to be in line at the pool. Like, it was very strict, the timing, and he wouldn't, and he was like, oh, I'm not gonna put on this swimsuit. And she said, I am never, ever gonna have children. And she doesn't have any children. That was the defining moment.
It's funny.
But that was wild, but I learned a lot.
But I've said this too. I've done a lot of training. I did one last week with these ALT, the assistant language teachers, who were on, day 1. And I said, you're going to get tired. You're going to think you're doing, 7 different schools a week and all this kind of stuff. But this is where you're on the front lines learning your craft. There's not a better training that you can be doing, because, what you see is what you get. And for some of them who said they wanted to look at this as a career, it's invaluable what, as you're saying, what you learned, and you called it boot camp.
Yeah,
But,
it was like an army training. It was unbelievable. It was really hard, and it was really good. And you had to do everything. We had to do a hapyokai, they had to do, they had to do a musical, they had to play instruments. So my musical training really, really came in handy there. But they have to do everything. You have to just be able to do everything.
Yeah.
And they do, and they're amazing. They're just amazing. So I feel they're very undervalued in Japan.
Yeah, certainly underpaid.
Underpaid, and I think your first teacher is the most important teacher. That's why I really like to get the babies. Oh,
that's good. That's good. We had a question to help teachers warm up, but I dare say you're pretty warmed up already. The question was to share a couple of activities that are some of your favorite activities. Again, thinking about some new teachers who might be watching this. And I didn't do it with Ruthie, or it was a post-Ruthie idea. But is there 1 or 2 activities that you always know are going to work, and you can choose the context or the age group?
Well, I really love, now this is something, I don't know, you'd have to get the CD to do it, but I love the rhythm sticks. It's so much fun. But for example, I don't know what age you're talking about, but a very easy activity would be a rhythmic activity.
Because Anne is in the audience, and she's got these little tiny ones, so I'm sure she would be drooling to hear anything that you just always know you're going to do with a small group when you first.
When I teach the very little ones, I do almost the same class every time, because very little ones like a routine. They like what they know, especially the little kids. And I can say, now I say to them, okay, get the bells, and one of them will go and get the bells. They know what I've said. because they know the routine. I sometimes switch up the routine a little bit, but they've got it. I always do, I try to take Japanese activities that they're familiar with. And this is what I used when I made Honeysuckle Cottage, my book set. I took things that I was listening, what they knew already, what they were playing on the playground, and then I turned it into an English activity. So now I've developed it more, but in the very beginning, I did exactly what they did. We did it outside. You know the game where they say, "Ashita no tenki ni nare," and they kick a shoe? So I was watching them do that, and I said, oh no, we have to make that some kind of an English game. So I made a song. I made in my set, hold on. In my set, there's a book called The Weatherby. And even the babies love this. Actually, one of the kids in my class, she's not even 2 yet. She was singing this with me on Saturday, and I'm like, wow. And but in this one, after we play it, we spin the weather dial. So if you didn't have a weather dial, you could make one. But we say, oh Weatherby, oh Weatherby, oh what will the weather be? Oh Weatherby, oh Weatherby, let's spin the dial and see. And then, so that's the lyrics to the song, the chorus to the song. And then they spin it, and then they tell me, stormy, oh no. And then we see, oh, same, we learn same and different. And then for a little bit older ones, I put cards around the floor. And they tell me what the weather is. I put them around the floor, and then we do that chant, and I'm in the middle. They choose a card. Oh, I got sunny. And then I spin. Oh, you won. Oh, and then they become the one who spins the dial. That kind of thing they love.
Yeah, great.
And then they all watch that Okazan show.
Yeah.
Everybody's watched that. So I would take stuff from there.
Just for Svetlana's in Russia, I'm just going to tell her that this is a TV show. It's sort of where mothers and children sit together, and it's called Okasan to Isho, which means together with my mother. And that's on every morning or every...
It's on every morning on NHK, on public television.
Yeah.
So they all know everything from this. They know, I take what they know in their own culture, and then I turn it into English.
Yeah, that's very clever.
So like this, this is my character from my book. This is rough. And then in my workbook for the young learners, like from maybe 4 to 8, we have emotions. So this is the first set of emotions, and we do happy, and I say, what's the emotion? Oh, she's excited. Oh, uh-oh, he's mad. And just like they do on the Okasan show. So I say, how do you feel? 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 How do you feel today? And then I feel happy. Happy. And then I have them roll it. I feel, and then they love, I say, if I roll it, and then they say, uh-oh, mad, mad. And then I have them make the face, and they're learning the emotions, they're learning the word. And then later with my older kids, so we have 3 sets of emotions, and then they have to find it on the page and then match what they know with the word. So I try to start like I don't know, like Legos, you try to get the little blocks at the beginning, and then you want to build on that scaffolding, and then until they can put what they're saying, what they hear, and link it to what they see on a page, and then they start reading. Yeah. I think music can help with that. So when they're singing a song and they're looking at the words, they're starting to recognize the words. Even without knowing it, they're speaking in complete sentences. They have perfect grammar. So.
Yeah. Well, they're learning it as a native kid would learn it almost.
Right. Yeah. And actually this set is used with kindergartens in America, in Virginia, many kindergartens, Montessori schools. And
take a moment and show us the set, because I'm not familiar with it.
Okay.
We'll have a TV commercial break now.
Great. So this is my Honeysuckle Cottage set. And in the set, there are 5 books, thematic learning. So the first one, and I based it really on what I was doing at kindergarten, because most kindergarten curriculums have thematic learning. I mean, my son did when he went through kindergarten, and they learn a topic. So what I did was I took a topic that they would like, and then I turned it into a song, And then I made also a game or an activity to go with each song. So I made a set of cards that go with it. And they can do matching, and you can level up, you know, have the little kids turn over one card, or go find the snake and they find it, you know. So you could level up, or you could read the book, and you could put it in order of when you hear it, put the card down so that they improve their listening skills. So I use the books in a lot of ways. And then, of course, listening. So I put them in very small chunks. I have a cat, I have a dog, I have a mouse, I have a frog. So there's like, it's very simple pattern sentences. And then there's a little twist on it that in this book, he really wants one more pet. He has a lot of pets, but he wants to get an alligator, but his mom won't go for that idea. So, and then the Weatherby, teaching homophones and the Weatherby. And then I was so lucky because of my music background that I had great music connections. So my friend in New York's a composer, so I wrote out the tunes and the songs, and then she worked on my arrangement. And then through a connection of hers, we had written a song years ago, a pop song that a very famous arranger, who's a friend of hers, had arranged. And I asked him, I said, would you please arrange my songs? And he and his wife are this great team. And it's Arthur and Leslie Stead. And Arthur Stead was the one, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he wrote the soundtrack for the Goonies, and he toured with Peter Frampton, and he has a Grammy. He's like, this is so great. He plays like 25 instruments. He taught at Berkeley. He's amazing. So he said, yeah, I'll do it for you. And so he arranged all these songs, and they're like, it was my dream. I had it in my mind for years. It was complete in my head. And then it became a reality. So this
Anne has just asked, do you have a YouTube channel?
I do. English Garden Learning.
English Garden Learning. Okay, keep going.
So then this is about bugs. But what I also did in it was, then we get into my teaching philosophy, is I think that learning needs to be more than just memorizing facts for a test. So what really is important is that children learn how to learn. And I think that you can start right from babies. So I was studying a lot about the higher faculties of learning. And I called them, my coin was Mr. Pee-wee. And it's memory and reason and Mr. Memory, reason, perception, intuition, memory, and imagination. And these are the tools that the kids need. So I try to put all of this into it. Like this is about bugs, which interests kids. Like one of my kids in the kindergarten, I said, when you grow up, what do you want to be? And because they had to stand in front of the class, in front of the whole school, 300 kids plus parents on their birthdays, and say their favorite color, their name. I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, I want to be a bug. I said, well, you're making good progress.
He's learning the art of how to bug in order to be a bug.
Every picture was a bug, you know. I said, okay, you're on the way. So this one is critical thinking. So you have deductive thinking, actually. So you have 3 hints, and you have to figure out what the bug is. And they like it. They're like, oh, and I know this, I know that. And then you lift the flap to find out what it is. Mm-hmm. And then it's all put to a jazz tune. So I put it all to different genres. There's a Caribbean, kind of a calypso thing, and all kinds of different.
Were you very entrepreneurial before you started doing this? Or what did it take to go from recognizing that if you could make an English version of things that they were already, doing, that could be successful, and then from there to then create, tell me what the thought process was a little bit.
That was another wild journey.
Uh-huh.
I had all this material that I was writing, and I was writing like crazy for my kindergarten class, and everything that we did on stage, I had written. I wrote the songs, I played the piano, they were like doing, and I was creating so many things, and I didn't like really what was out there. I liked Oxford Reading Tree for teaching them reading, but there wasn't anything like that with music for them.
Right.
So I started writing all this stuff. So I had all this material. And so I finally left the kindergarten and said, I'm going to open my own school, which was also kind of a twist of fate because we were moving closer to Scuba Center because of my kids' sports. They were all into judo, and they needed to be closer to their practice because I was working. So we moved into a house, and in front of the house there was the owner of the house. There was an open shop that was also open, and I looked at it and I said, I want to look at this space, and I said this is what I want for my music studio. I want to write and create in here. And she said, would you open an English school? Please open an English school. I have grandchildren and I want you to teach them. And I was just coming from kindergarten. Like, English school? That sounds like a lot of work. But then I thought, I want to pay the rent. So I was like, yeah, but because I was doing that, I thought, yeah. So I started my English school, and but I wanted this space, actually. I wanted this space, and so that's been 12 years ago. So I teach all ages here, and many students, like Ruthie said, have stayed with me like from the time they were kids. I just had two that moved to Tokyo to go to high school, and we were like, I took them out. We went to karaoke together, and that was so funny. They played the same song for 2 hours. Not a so-so song. They played it for 2 hours and sang it. So, but I took them bowling. They became like my children. These kids that I've taught so many years. So I have some that have been with me a really long time, and I have lots of good memories, with my children. And now I have new babies coming along, so that's fun.
Do you teach by yourself there? Do you have other teachers under your tutelage?
Last year, the last 2 years, I had an assistant teacher, and she was teaching some classes for me. And then a year ago, I took a full-time job at Juntendo University. So, and it's far away from me. So she was teaching for me last year, and then she became an ALT, and I was really actually too swamped with work to find another teacher and train another teacher. So now I just thought it was easier for now, at least while I'm full-time, to teach on Saturdays. So I just consolidated my classes, whoever could join on Saturday. So I have a really packed Saturday.
Yep.
And I have a couple of adults who come for singing lessons during the week.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think I've got kind of a real good sense so far. Everything you've said has been really interesting. I'm not sure if this question about your influences makes sense, because you seem to be very influenced by the music and the theater stuff. But in Japan, do you have any people, either professionals in EFL or that have influenced you?
I don't know about EFL, but I have learned from the teachers that I worked with. You mentioned about being entrepreneurial, and I started this school, and I didn't have any business background. I worked as an actor and a singer, but I always had an agent who took care of the business. And then I was like, oh my gosh! And then to start a business in a foreign country, it's very difficult. And actually, my husband at one point said, "You don't know anything about business," and I was thinking that made me mad at the time. And then there was this ad we have in Scuba. There are many researchers, and this. Many foreigners are here, and the university, I taught at Scuba University that's another story, for 7 years. And we have this network of foreigners. And then this ad came up on this, it's called Tyranet, and it said, are you interested in getting, it's kind of a mini MBA in Tokyo. And it was the JMAC program. I don't know if you've heard of it, JMAC. And it's the Japan Market Entry, the Japan Market Entry Program, something. And so it's a real business program, and it's sponsored by 7 chambers of commerce. And it was, when I said, oh yeah, I'm interested in that. And then it was a major like ordeal to do it. It was a 9-month commitment. It was it was a certificate, but it was a kind of a mini MBA, like packed.
Yeah.
And we took classes I think our classes were at Temple, but it wasn't through Temple. It was like just a space there. And professionals came in and gave lectures for like 6 months. We had lectures every Saturday. I had to rearrange every class on Saturday for like months and months. I did that. And it was expensive also. And everybody in there was a marketing major or a business people, everybody. And except for me, and most people's businesses had sent them there.
Right.
And in it, you had to write a business plan for a real company that wanted to come to Japan. They put us in teams. So for the first part, it was lectures and learning about business, and the president of IKEA came and talked to us, and Greg Story talked to us. He's the head of the going out of my head.
An association or?
No, he's head of the Dale Carnegie Institute in Japan.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think at that time it was head of the Australian Bank or something. But we had all of these professionals come in, Terry Lloyd and all these, big name business people came in and talked. I was fascinated. I was really fascinated, and I was like so happy to be learning. And one of the professors was Roger Birkin, he has his own company now, Pedal KK, but he was head of the Asian marketing for Unilever. So, and branded many, many things. So and he was the mentor on our team. So anyway, we did all of these, we had to write, I was like many sleepless nights. We had to write a business plan. I wrote the actual marketing plan of it, which I was like amazed that I could do it. I was writing and then they said, make it like a story. So I wrote it, and our financial advisor was a real person in the banking world. And he said, who wrote this part? I said, I did. And I was like expecting him to scold me. He said, oh, this is really good. This is really interesting. I'm like, oh. And so then we had to submit like this huge document with financials, with everything. So we had to submit that. And then they were going to be judged, and somebody was going to win this thing. Some team was going to win. And then the final step was we had to do a business presentation for a panel of real investment bankers. And I went out on a limb. There was one guy on my team that I just loved, and he's a young guy and really good, like marketing. And I said, you got to trust me on this. This is what I really know. And I said, presentations, this is what I did. I did this professionally in New York. I did it for big companies. So I wrote the presentation, I sang, we made it like a show. We brought in professionals, all these people that we had interviewed. And I think we wowed them. Anyway, we won. And afterwards they said, oh, that presentation was really something. And I was like, I thought it had to be creative. So I really trusted my instinct, and we won. I was like so amazed that we won.
Was that a huge confidence booster for you, or was it more of just validated what you sort of knew inside yourself?
Well, I think it was a confidence booster because I thought I didn't know anything about business, but actually because I had worked for big corporations, I think I knew more than I thought I knew. And I'd done commercials, so I knew what selling points were. And actually I used commercials in my university work because I think they're so valuable. You must be succinct. You must be clear. You have to be precise. You have to get your point across, and you have time limited. It's just like TOEFL, like that speaking test.
And you have to be persuasive. I mean, that's, yeah. Wow.
So I think all of that's very valuable. So I try to look at, as a teacher, what I can bring to the table, And when I interviewed for Juntendo, they said, what do you think you can bring to us? And I said, well, this is what I think I'm really good at, is pronunciation. Because of my background in singing, you have to learn exactly how to form words. And I studied many languages, how to pronounce in different languages. So I know what's needed almost the same way that a linguist would know if you did applied linguistics. So I think, and my ear is very well trained for pronunciation. For teaching presentation, that's kind of a natural. That's what I did all those years. So I've had to learn other things from other teachers. My supervisor right now is language acquisition is her big research topic, PhD in that. So she's helpful to me. I've had other supervisors that are very helpful. Right after I started my school, I had free time during the day. Mostly I taught kids after school. So I saw again on this same network that this very famous linguistics professor from Scuba was looking for someone to assist his class in teaching the speaking portion of the IBT test. So I wrote to him and said, I want to do it. He said, oh, no, you're really too overqualified for this. It's just a teaching assistant here. I said, no, I want to do it. I said, can I come to your class? And he said, yeah. So I went to every class. He was amazed. I went to every class. I took notes. I was watching. It was like being an intern. I took notes. I watched how he taught. I helped another teacher from Canada. You know, Christy Collins?
Yep, sure.
So I went to her class. I assisted her too. I did research for her. I was taking notes. I went, I think I can do this. And they both let me teach in the class. So, and then they recommended me to teach at the Foreign Language Center at Scuba. So I did that for 7 years before June Tendo. So I kind of scoop it up as I go, but I've been watching.
Yeah, this is all kind of building up in me to ask, where did this challenger kind of spirit in you that you just keep trying anything? And is that something you were born with or you got from somebody? And how do we teach that to other students? Because when I see it, like I'm seeing it right now, it's wonderful. It's you know, infectious. So where did it come from, and can you teach it?
I think it can be taught. I was saying I took this business class, and our mentor was Roger Brooken, and he became my business partner when I decided to publish the books. And the impetus, I think, for publishing the books, I had this idea, and I said, I have to do this, but I don't know. I had all these objections in my mind. I don't have the money, and I don't have the team, and I don't have an artist, and I don't have this. And all the objections came, and I think that comes whenever you want to try something. Whenever you want to try something new, the objections come first. You know, we call it different things, the monkeys in your head. And at that time, again, maybe fate stepped in, and my oldest son, again, connected to my kids, was struggling a bit in junior high, and not with school, but with different things. And I thought he needed more confidence, and I knew he loved sports. And I had heard about Dennis Waitley. You know Dennis Waitley? He's the Psychology of Winning. He wrote many, many famous books and audio books, and he was the mental trainer for the Olympic teams in America for 25 years.
Oh, yeah. I know him. Yeah.
And yeah, he travels around the world and speaks. He's in his 80s now. And I bought this set of his CDs for my son. And then my son listened a little bit, and he said, these are kind of hard for me, Mom. He said, why don't you listen and you tell me about them? And I said, okay. And I did. And I started listening to them every day. And they were really, really powerful. And I felt that my dreams had kind of gotten off track, actually, at that point. And I started listening every day, and I said, I have to move on my ideas. I must move on my ideas and follow my heart. And so I wrote him a note. I just wrote him an email. I didn't know that he would ever even get it. I wrote him an email. I somehow found his email address, and I wrote him an email, and I said, I just want to thank you. And it was very simple. I said, you've really helped me put my dreams back on track. And I've started to, and I actually published one book. Somehow I managed to publish one book. And I said, I feel like I need to do this, and I need to pursue this. And he wrote back to me, and he became a mentor to me. And one of his suggestions, and I need to start it again, actually, one of his suggestions is to write a forward-thinking journal. So this is how it can be taught. Write a forward-thinking journal as if it happened already. And I did that for a long time, and I would write. Even before I won that competition with my team, I wrote it out on the way, on the train, when they were going to make the announcement. I said, oh, we feel so good that we won today. We worked so hard, and I feel we really deserved it. And I feel so happy for myself and for the team. And you know, and when I look back at that journal, I went, which one is real? Like it was like I was writing the future. And I need to get back, and I gotta find my pencil again. I need to get back to it because it's a very powerful tool. And if you don't really think it, I mean, writing something down is very powerful.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
most people never write their goals down. So if you write it down and you move towards it, and then things started falling into place that I suddenly, you know, was able to get the funding to publish, and I was teaching English at Scuba University, and I had a group of art students, and we did a life map, and we did all these things in class, and like many different things. And one student said, my goal is to illustrate children's books. I said, see me after class. And she became the artist for this series. and
So
then I
do you
said,
think, do you think you were born with this, or have you just picked it up? You've also mentioned 2 or 3 times in the past hour doing little things every day. And and that's certainly, you hear that from some wise people as well. But back to the question, were you born this way?
I think so. I've always been kind of an overachiever. You know, in Japanese, we talk about what kanji means. You know, what does your name mean? And Deborah literally means industrious, and the nickname is Busy Bee. And it really suits me. I was like, why didn't you give me an easier name? But it suits me, and I stay really busy because one of my adult students, she's a top-level biomass researcher, and we were reading this article about people who work 3 jobs, you know, and she said, but you do that, don't you? And I said, oh no, I work 4.
But that's what they say, if you want to get something done, ask a busy person if you want something to get done, because yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, this gets back again to learning, teaching young learners. I think learning should be a journey. It should be a joy, and it should give you energy.
Yeah.
So, and my first class at university always is, who hates English? And all the hands go up. Not all, almost all the hands go up, except English majors. You know? And it shouldn't be that way. I said, well, my job this year is to turn that around. That'll be the first thing, because English should be a tool for communication. I mean, this is so fun to talk together and to listen and to get ideas from each other. But this idea of just learning and to learn for a test is, I can't convince the powers that be at my school yet, but
yeah. Wow.
At my uni.
Let me wrap up. Just we're at time, but I still want to just wrap up with the one thing, the one question about, is there anything new that you've been interested in recently, or anything that you want to, you just mentioned you want to get back into the forward thinking diary, but is there anything else that's kind of on your mind these days, or something you've heard about, or something that you'd like to learn more about in the teaching world?
To learn more about, yeah, I'm interested in researching more about creativity, using creativity in the ESL classroom. And I try to bring a lot of creative activities to the classroom, but I'm very interested to network and find out what other people are doing. And
so there's a group called the C Group. If you
right. I need to join. Yeah.
You do. I mean, it's Alan Mali and Malu is in Brazil, and she's been here in Japan. Jill Hadfield, who's in New Zealand.
Kathy, that too, I think. Right?
And who?
Kathy Kampa. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But
but
they're
really close in our ideas about music and creativity. Yeah.
Yeah. Or start something here in Japan, because all you have to do is put your hand up, and probably you would find some people. You should think about doing a course with us. With iTDi, we have these month-long courses, and with your energy and your experience and ideas, it might be on music in the classroom, for instance. You know, So I'll contact you later about that. But
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be very fun.
I've had a ball in this. See, Anne said I'd take that course in a heartbeat.
Come on, and I'll teach you how to do rhythm 6 and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Do you happen to know Susan Hilliard?
That name sounds familiar, but I don't know that I've met her.
So she's in Argentina. She's from the UK, but she's in Argentina, and she does drama in the classroom. She's published a pretty fat book on her whole theory and practice, and it's really good. She's a lot like you, except she's not on the music side as much as on the drama side. But what a kick-ass duo you two would be together. That you should look her up a little bit. Anyway, I'll be in touch for sure. But I've just had
so fast. I didn't even get to my journey.
The problem is you're going to be all wound up now for another hour or two, because that's what happens to me when I get on one of these. It takes a while to cool down.
I'm going to get out my journal.
That's it. So I'm going to figure out the recording on this and send it to you. I don't think you said anything we can't share with people.
I didn't bash Anne yet.
Not yet. She's still there. There you go. So anyway, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, totally fun. Hey, I feel like I met a new friend.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. We have a lot in common, actually. So.
Sure do.
Oh.
Okay, well, I guess we have to wrap up.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna turn off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause I guess I could turn it off.